You spend your life believing that someone else will complete you, that happiness will come when the right people stay, when they understand you, when they choose you. But look closely. Every time you depend on others, your peace becomes fragile, your mind becomes restless, and your heart begins to suffer in silence. The truth is simple, yet difficult to accept. The more you rely on others for your happiness, the further you move away from it. Imagine a life where your peace does not shake when someone leaves, where your joy does not depend on attention, and where your mind remains calm even in loneliness. This is not coldness, this is freedom. When you stop needing people to feel whole, something powerful begins to awaken inside you. You start to see clearly, think deeply, and live lightly. Listen carefully. The path to your best life does not begin when people stay. It begins the moment you no longer need them to. Part 1. Depending on others creates hidden suffering. There is a quiet pain that most people carry, and they do not even know its name. It lives inside the chest, in the space between waiting for a message and the silence that follows. It grows in the moments when you look around a room full of people and still feel unseen. This pain does not come from the outside world. It comes from a deep, invisible agreement you made a long time ago, that your happiness depends on others. When that agreement goes unfulfilled, the suffering begins, softly at first, then louder, until it becomes the only sound inside your mind. Think for a moment about a tree that grows its roots into another tree's soil. At first it seems fine, but slowly as the seasons change, the borrowed soil becomes thin. The tree grows weaker because it never learned to find its own nourishment. You too are like this when you depend on others to feel good about yourself. Your emotions begin to follow someone else's moods. Your mornings become good or bad based on whether someone replied to you. Your self-worth rises and falls like a leaf in someone else's wind. This is not living. This is surviving on borrowed peace. The deeper truth is this: when you place your happiness in the hands of another person, you are also placing your suffering there. Whatever gives you joy can also give you pain because it is not under your control. You smile when they call and ache when they do not. You feel safe when they are kind and lost when they are cold. This is the cycle that traps you, not in their hands but in your own expectations, and the suffering does not end until you understand that the source of your peace was never meant to exist outside of you. Now, there is something even more hidden in this pattern of dependence. It slowly takes away your ability to trust yourself. When you always need someone else to confirm your feelings, validate your choices, or tell you that you are enough, you begin to forget that you have a voice of your own. Over time, you stop listening to yourself. You second-guess your instincts. You hesitate before making decisions. And in that inner silence, a quiet despair grows, not from loneliness, but from the feeling that you have somehow lost yourself in the search for belonging. There is also a hidden anger that comes from depending on others. When people do not meet the expectations you quietly placed on them, you feel betrayed, you feel let down. But here is what is rarely said: they never agreed to carry your happiness. They had no idea the weight you placed on them. They were simply living their own lives, making their own choices, trying to find their own peace. The suffering you feel is real, but the cause is not their behavior. It is the belief that they were responsible for your well-being in the first place. Understanding this is not about blaming yourself. It is about waking up with gentleness. You were never taught to be enough on your own. The world around you often said, find someone, belong somewhere, be chosen, and then you will be happy. But these were incomplete lessons. They left out the most important part. Before any of that, you must first become a home for yourself. When you begin to see how dependence creates hidden suffering, you take the first step out of that suffering. And that first step begins not with grand action, but with a quiet, honest recognition of where your pain truly begins. Part 2. Your mind becomes weak when it seeks validation. There is something you may not have noticed. Every time you wait for someone's approval before you feel good about yourself, your mind becomes a little weaker. Not in the way muscles weaken. This weakness is quieter, more invisible. It lives in the habit of looking outward for answers that can only be found within. When the mind is trained to seek validation, it loses its ability to rest. It is always watching how others respond, how they react, what they think. And a mind that is always watching others can never truly see itself. Imagine walking through a garden while holding a mirror up to another person's face instead of looking at the flowers around you. You miss the beauty, you miss the path, you miss your own reflection entirely. This is what happens when the mind is always chasing how others see you. You stop experiencing your own life. You start performing it instead. You choose words carefully not because they are true, but because they will be well received. You dress not for comfort, but for approval. You stay quiet not because you have nothing to say, but because you are afraid of how it will land. Life becomes a stage, and you become exhausted from the performance. The need for validation is so deeply woven into human behavior that most people mistake it for connection. But there is a difference between sharing yourself with others and needing others to tell you who you are. Genuine connection comes from a place of fullness. You offer your presence, your truth, your care freely and without condition. The need for validation, however, comes from emptiness. You offer yourself hoping that someone will fill the space inside you with their approval. One is a gift freely given, the other is a transaction dressed as intimacy. And the mind that lives in transaction is never at peace. There is also a kind of quiet exhaustion that comes from monitoring how others see you. It is not the tiredness of a long day's work. It is the tiredness of carrying a version of yourself that was built for others. The mind that seeks validation builds a self-image out of compliments and criticisms, likes and dislikes, smiles and silences, and then it must constantly maintain that image, defend it, polish it, worry about it. This is a full-time occupation with no rest, no peace, and no genuine reward. The mind was not made for this kind of labor. True strength of mind begins to grow the moment you decide that you do not need anyone's permission to feel worthy. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is when you believe you are better than others. What is being described here is something quieter and more powerful, the simple, steady knowing that you are already enough, exactly as you are in this moment, without any proof from the outside world. When the mind rests in this knowing, it becomes still, it becomes clear, and in that clarity, you begin to see people for who they truly are, rather than through the distorted lens of what you need from them. So, let the mind come home to itself, not with force, not with self-criticism, but with patience. Begin to notice gently the moments when you look outside yourself for reassurance. Notice the breath that shortens when someone does not respond the way you hoped. Notice the small collapse inside when your effort goes unacknowledged. These are not failures. They are signals, gentle reminders that the mind is still reaching outward for what can only be cultivated from within. Each time you notice, you have already taken a step back toward yourself. And that step, taken again and again with kindness, is how a weak mind slowly becomes unshakable. Part 3. True peace begins when you stand alone. There is a moment that most people fear deeply but rarely speak of. The moment of being completely alone with themselves. Not alone waiting for someone to arrive. Not alone scrolling through a phone searching for a face. Truly alone, still, silent, with nothing to distract and no one to perform for. In that moment, many people feel a deep discomfort, as if something is wrong. But here is what that discomfort is really telling you. You have not yet made peace with who you are when no one is watching. And until that peace is made, you will spend your life running toward people, toward noise, toward anything that keeps you from that silence. There was once a student who traveled a great distance to learn from a master. When he arrived, tired and eager, he expected wisdom to be handed to him. But the master only pointed to a chair near the window and said, "Sit there, alone, and be quiet until you find what you are looking for." The student waited for days, uncomfortable and confused. But slowly something unexpected happened. The noise inside him began to settle. The restlessness softened, and in that stillness he began to understand things about himself that no teacher could have ever told him. This is the gift of solitude, not punishment, but revelation. Standing alone does not mean becoming distant or cold. It does not mean building walls or pushing people away. It means something far more subtle and far more powerful. It means that your sense of who you are does not collapse when others are not present. You can sit in a quiet room and feel complete. You can walk without a companion and still feel accompanied by your own thoughts, your own breath, your own awareness. This kind of aloneness is not loneliness. Loneliness is the ache that comes from needing others and not having them. True solitude is the peace that comes from being enough for yourself. The person who has made peace with their own company becomes deeply free in ways that are hard to explain to those who have not experienced it. They no longer accept poor treatment simply to avoid being alone. They no longer stay in relationships that drain them out of fear of emptiness. They no longer reshape themselves to fit into spaces where they were never truly welcomed, because they know that the cost of losing their own peace is far greater than the discomfort of being misunderstood. This is not stubbornness. This is self-respect quietly wearing the face of wisdom. Peace that begins inside you is also far more durable than peace that depends on circumstances. When peace comes from someone's presence, it leaves with their absence. When peace comes from good news, it trembles with every uncertainty. But when peace comes from within, from a deep and practiced familiarity with your own inner world, it does not rise and fall with the tides of life. People can be kind or unkind, and you remain steady. Events can be favorable or difficult, and you remain grounded. This steadiness is not indifference. It is the quiet maturity that comes from standing firmly inside yourself. So sit with yourself a little more, not out of discipline, but out of curiosity. Begin to learn the rhythms of your own mind. Discover what thoughts arise when all the noise is gone. Notice what truly matters to you when no one is watching your choices. In this practice, slowly and gently, you will begin to recognize yourself as a place of rest. Not a place of perfection, but a place of honesty, of familiarity, of deep and unconditional acceptance. And when you have found that place inside yourself, you will never again be truly alone in the way that frightens you, because wherever you go, you will carry your peace with you. Part 4. Letting go of expectations frees your heart. Every expectation you carry is a small thread attached to your heart. When the person or situation you expected something from moves in a different direction, that thread pulls. And if you have many such threads tied to many people, many outcomes, many silent hopes, then every day is filled with small pulls and tugs that slowly wear the heart thin. You may not always know the name of what you are feeling. You call it disappointment or hurt or frustration. But beneath all those names is the same thing, an expectation that was not met. And the quiet suffering that follows is not caused by the person, it is caused by the thread. There is a certain kind of love that comes with invisible conditions. You help someone, and somewhere inside you, without even speaking it, you hope they will remember. You stay loyal, and you hope loyalty will return. You sacrifice, and you wait, sometimes for years, for the gratitude you feel you deserve. These unspoken expectations feel so natural that you rarely question them, but they are, in their own quiet way, transactions. And when the transaction is not completed, the heart feels cheated, not because the other person did something wrong, but because they did not know about the agreement you made alone inside yourself. Letting go of expectations does not mean you stop caring. This is a misunderstanding that keeps many people holding on. Letting go does not mean becoming careless or indifferent. It means doing kind things because kindness is your nature, not because you are keeping score. It means loving people without attaching the love to an outcome. It means giving without making the gift conditional on what returns to you. This kind of love, the kind that moves freely without needing anything back, is the most powerful love there is, and it is also, quietly, the most liberating because it costs you nothing in peace. Think of water flowing through a river. The water does not expect the rocks to move out of its way. It does not grow bitter when the rocks divert its path. It simply moves around, below, between, finding its way forward without resistance. This is the quality of a heart that has released its expectations. It does not fight what is. It does not demand that people be other than who they are. It moves gracefully through life, accepting the shapes of things without requiring them to change. And in that acceptance, it finds a way forward that is far more peaceful than any path carved through resentment. There is something deeply important about accepting people as they are, rather than as you need them to be. When you hold an image of how someone should behave, you stop truly seeing them. You see only the distance between who they are and who you want them to be. And that distance becomes a source of constant pain. But when you release that image, when you allow people to simply be themselves, with all their imperfections and contradictions, you begin to experience them honestly. And honest experience, even when it is not what you hoped for, is far less painful than the suffering of endless disappointment. So begin very gently to look at the expectations you carry, not to judge yourself for having them. They are human and they are understandable, but to see them clearly, perhaps for the first time. Notice when your peace depends on someone doing a particular thing. Notice when your mood is tied to an outcome you cannot control. And then, very softly, like loosening a knot with patient fingers, begin to let those threads go. Not all at once, just one, then another, and each time you release an expectation, you will feel something unexpected, not emptiness as you might fear, but a lightness that has been waiting quietly beneath the weight all along. Part 5. Self-reliance builds quiet inner strength. There is a kind of strength that does not announce itself. It does not arrive with noise or ceremony. It does not require an audience to be real. It grows quietly in the moments when you choose to keep going, even when no one is watching. It deepens in the long hours of solitude, when you sit with your own thoughts and slowly, steadily learn to be at peace with them. This strength is not built through hardship alone. It is built through the daily practice of turning inward, of trusting yourself, of choosing your own judgment over the noise of everyone else's opinion. This is inner strength, and it is the most reliable strength there is. Self-reliance does not mean you close your heart to others. It means you stop outsourcing the care of your own soul. When you rely on others to manage your emotions, soothe your fears, and fill your silences, you become fragile in a very particular way, not the fragility of weakness, but the fragility of a lamp that only shines when someone else holds the match. True self-reliance means learning to hold your own match. It means sitting with your own discomfort long enough to understand it. It means giving yourself the reassurance you so often seek from others because you have discovered that you are capable of providing it. Think about the moments in your life when you surprised yourself, when you thought you could not handle something, a loss, a failure, a long stretch of uncertainty, and then quietly, somehow, you did. You were not carried through those moments by someone else's strength. You carried yourself. Perhaps you did not notice it at the time, because the pain was loud and the fear was close. But looking back, you will see you were stronger than you believed. This is what self-reliance asks you to do, not to perform strength, but to remember it, to remember that you have already survived many things that once felt impossible. The quiet inner strength that comes from self-reliance changes how you move through the world. You stop giving so much weight to what others think because you have learned to weigh your own thoughts carefully and trust them. You stop collapsing when someone withdraws their approval because your sense of self no longer rests on their assessment of you. You stop chasing relationships out of fear because you know that you can be whole even in the absence of company. These are not small changes. They are the kind of shifts that slowly transform the quality of every day you live in ways that are quiet but profoundly real. There is also a deep comfort that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. It is not the comfort of having every answer. No wise person claims that. It is the comfort of knowing that whatever comes, you will meet it. You will feel what needs to be felt. You will think what needs to be thought. You will find your way through as you have found your way through before. This knowing does not eliminate fear, but it softens it. It gives the fear somewhere to rest. Because beneath the fear there is a steadiness that belongs only to you, and that steadiness is always available as long as you are willing to look for it. So practice self-reliance the way you practice anything worth having. Slowly, with patience, and without demanding perfection. Begin to notice the moments when you reach outward for something you could give to yourself. Begin to sit a little longer with your own discomfort before seeking distraction. Begin to trust your instincts, even when they are quiet, even when no one else is confirming them, and over time something will change. Not dramatically, not all at once, but deeply and permanently. You will begin to feel something settle inside you, a quiet certainty, a soft but unshakable knowing that you are your own foundation, and that foundation, once built, does not crack when the world outside becomes uncertain. Part 6. When you need less, you live more. There is a very strange and beautiful truth that most people discover only after years of searching. The less you need, the more richly you live. This does not mean living with nothing. It means living without desperation. When you approach life from a place of need, needing approval, needing constant company, needing things to go a certain way, you are never fully present in what is actually here. You are always reaching for something just beyond your grasp, always running toward the next thing that will finally make you feel complete. But completion never comes this way, because the need itself keeps moving the finish line. Consider the difference between eating when you are hungry and eating when you are desperate. When you are simply hungry, you taste the food, you enjoy it, you feel grateful for it. But when you are desperate, you barely taste anything. You eat quickly, anxiously, afraid it might not be enough. The same food, the same meal, but two completely different experiences. This is what happens to all of life when you live from need. People become sources of relief rather than companions in the journey. Experiences become distractions rather than moments of genuine presence. The beautiful becomes invisible because you are too busy searching for the necessary. When you begin to need less from the world, you do not become cold or distant. You become more genuinely present. You begin to truly see the people in your life, not as providers of something you lack, but as fellow travelers, each carrying their own weight, each finding their own way. And from this seeing, a different kind of connection becomes possible, one that is not driven by need, but by genuine appreciation. You stop holding people so tightly, and because of that, they can breathe more freely around you. And ironically, this is when people are drawn closer to you, not because you pursued them, but because you stopped needing them to come. There is a very quiet joy that lives inside the person who has learned to need less. It is not the loud joy of a celebration or the fleeting joy of getting what you wanted. It is a steady, low, constant warmth, like the feeling of sunlight on your face after a long winter. It does not depend on events. It does not rise dramatically or fall sharply. It simply stays, humming gently beneath the surface of ordinary moments. You find it in the morning before the day has asked anything of you. You find it in a cup of tea, in the sound of rain, in the simple miracle of breath. And once you have tasted this joy, you understand that it was always available to you. You simply did not have room for it while your hands were full of need. Needing less also means worrying less. So much of the mind's restlessness comes from monitoring whether the things we depend on are still there, whether people still like us, whether our position in someone's life is secure, whether the good things will last. When you release these dependencies, the mind is freed from this constant monitoring. It no longer has to guard the gates of other people's affections. It no longer has to calculate and recalculate its standing in someone else's world. This is an enormous relief. It is like setting down a bag you have been carrying so long you forgot it was there. And without the weight, you discover something surprising. Your step is lighter. Your breathing is easier. You are finally, after so long, free to simply be. So here is what it means to live more by needing less. It means tasting your life fully, exactly as it is, without waiting for it to become something else. It means letting kindness from others be a gift you receive with open hands, not a rope you cling to out of fear. It means walking into each day not with demands, but with quiet openness. And in this openness, something extraordinary happens. Life begins to surprise you. People become more beautiful when you stop needing them to be perfect. Moments become more meaningful when you stop treating them as steps towards some future fulfillment. And you, your own self, becomes far more interesting, far more peaceful, and far more alive than you ever believed was possible from this place of simple, quiet contentment. In the end, your peace was never meant to be placed in the hands of others. People will come and go, situations will change, and life will continue to move in ways you cannot control. But there is one place that can remain steady: your own mind. When you stop relying on others to feel complete, you begin to discover a quiet strength that was always within you. This is not loneliness, it is freedom. Walk your path with calmness, not dependence. Let people be part of your life, but never the source of your peace. The moment you become enough for yourself, everything else becomes a gift, not a need, and in that state, nothing can truly disturb you.